Hello and welcome back to Jump To It in association with Betting Expert and IrishRacing.com. Now, as you can see, I'm not a dapper Australian. This week and next week, we're also giving Shane a bit of a break, but I am once again joined by our expert guests, bettingexpert.com racing editor Stephen Harris and Ed Quigley. Now, guys, Stephen, you are on absolute fire, it has to be said, with your tips lately. A couple of winners back to back for your, the best bet of the day. So, Stephen, how's it going, basically, tip-wise this week?
Yeah, it's been quite a good week. We had a 9-1 winner yesterday at Pontefract at the time of recording, so I can't say it's a fantastic weekend of racing ahead. The Shergar Cup divides opinion a bit, Joe. It's not everyone's cup of tea. There seems to be a sort of trend towards team sports and with the Racing League as well taking place tonight. So it's a difficult weekend ahead. It's there's competitive handicaps at Ascot to look forward to.
I mean, your tips are looking pretty good as well for Jump To It. We will get to your latest round of tips in a second. Just want to bring in Ed for now. I mean, how is it going at the moment in sunny Gloucestershire for you?
Far from sunny, yeah. It should be approaching heavy ground, I think, if the Cheltenham October meeting was started today. It's fair to say, but no, good, thank you. Yeah, Jump To It tips. Well, it started off like a house on fire. I'm starting to give it all back, aren't I? So I better sharpen my attitude up a bit. But yeah, one eye on that, and one eye on the golf, which kicks off today as well. But no, yeah, looking forward to it. As Stephen says, it wouldn't be let's be blunt, it wouldn't be a rip-roaring weekend of racing, but nonetheless, a couple of really good contests to get stuck into, and definitely will give a lot of information, glean a lot of clues for the future and at least the back end of this season.
Well, speaking about a lot of information that we could have gained maybe from past races, of course, last week we did have Goodwood and Galway. We'll get into the news as well. So, Stephen, just kick us off with your basically reactions from Goodwood initially.
Well, I mean, I always think Goodwood, Joe, is probably one day's racing crammed into 5 days, to be honest, one top-class day's racing. But this year, we did see some fantastic performances. I think Ed's going to touch on in a moment about Baid, who looks the sort of next Nashwan or Frankel, if you're a bit younger than me. He was a really impressive winner of the Group 3. Didn't beat a lot, but the manner of the victory, he was dropped out sort of 10 lengths behind and won by almost 7, pulling away with Crowley not doing a lot. He looks the next superstar. I do think there were some horses to follow for Jump To It punters, particularly Snow Lantern, who I thought got Jamie Spencered behind Alcohol Free. Another really ordinary ride from Spencer, losing a good position, turning for home and finishing strongly. That one's one to look out for. And also Perfect Power, who finished behind Asymmetric in the Richmond State. That was a very slow run, messy race, and Perfect Power was dropped out last, finished really strongly. He's one to keep an eye on for the juvenile races in the autumn.
And how about for you, Ed? What learns will you take from Goodwood?
Well, as Steve says, I mean, Baid was the horse everybody's talking about on the back of his performance. Yes, it was only a Group 3, but travelled with aplomb, and then there was like push-button acceleration and won like a serious horse. I mean, look, this horse is going into Group 1 company, be it whether it's a Group 2 next, then Group 1. I mean, I actually flagged it up on Twitter. I kind of put up a mythical kind of QE2 kind of race with Palace Pier and Alcohol Free, Poetic Flair, and how would you price it all up and everything. I suppose, along with Baid, William Haggis has said soft ground or deep ground at the end of the autumn or winter would be a bit of a worry, because this is a horse with natural gears and acceleration. But I mean, he's got to dine at the top table now, at least try to anyway, hasn't he? And that was by far the most visually impressive performance. Definitely the horse to take forward. But of course, I suppose Goodwood will be known for the retirement of Battaash, won't it really? The last time we saw the great sprinter who, unfortunately, just coming back from injury, just not quite got the old verve. Again, actually travelled really well to a point, but what is clear that under the bonnet now, perhaps the old gears aren't quite there, and so look, he's off to happy retirement. But yeah, Baid, definitely, I'm just really excited about this horse. So Palace, if you could somehow just, it never happens in racing, does it? We never get all these grand clashes that we always want, like the same way kind of boxers always avoid each other. But if you could get Baid, Alcohol Free, Poetic Flair, and Palace Pier, 4-horse race in the Champion Stakes, so even throw in St Mark's Basilica coming back in trip. I mean, you really are looking at some absolute top draw contest. So yeah, Baid, so exciting, and that really was a really impressive performance.
Great summary. And for you, Stephen, as well, just to sum up Battaash's career, I mean, how will he go down in the history books for you?
Yeah, I mean, his amazing strike rate, I think it was nudging 50%. He was always capable of absolutely explosive performance where he destroyed everything and be 3 or 4 lengths clear at halfway, and they were sort of strung out like a 3-mile chase. But he was always capable of that complete bombing out altogether. I remember a couple of times on really testing ground, he didn't take part at all, but he was explosively good on his day. I'm a bit disappointed. I think they've written him off too soon. I think you can, I mean, he's obviously not getting any younger, but I think you can make excuses for both Royal Ascot and Goodwood. He didn't try and lead initially. Crowley restrained him for the first furlong or two each time, and then I thought rather used him up into the heat of the race rather than just letting him go from the stalls. And also, he hasn't had a run on fast summer ground yet. He's never to now, of course, but I'd have given him one more chance at York. It's a shame he's been retired on such a low ebb.
Yeah, perhaps it was that injury that was the real question mark over him, I guess. But also sticking with you, Stephen, as well, we have Olivier Peslier booked to ride Wonderful tonight in the Arc. What do you make of that booking? I mean, I know we're a bit far out from the Arc, but what do you make of that news?
Well, I think that's good news for Wonderful tonight. I think she's a real live candidate for the Arc. When she won at Goodwood on the final day, it was a pretty weak renewal, but she pulled hard in the early stages, and Buick didn't try to restrain her. He tanked along in second place, chasing the clear leader. And I thought it was a pretty remarkable performance to win. She kept up the gallop. She did end up having a bit of a hard race. And the pair of them, I think it's Tribal Power in second, pulled miles clear of the rest. I mean, when you come to read the form back, Joe, it won't look that wonderful when you're looking in comparison to all the runners who are going to be in the Arc against her. But she'll get a different ride in the Arc, back in trip, a much more patient ride. They'll ride her for a turn of foot. She loves soft ground. She's trained by a genius. And the thing is, Peslier knows what to do in the Arc. I think it's a really good jockey booking. She'll get a patient rider. I think you definitely have to have a winner. I think she's around 10 or 14 to 1 for the Arc. And that's a fair price. Obviously, we don't know the runners. We can only guess at the ground. But it is going to be her target. I think she'll definitely go really close with luck in running.
Yeah, 10 to 1 looking like a decent, maybe anti-post bet right now. Just moving on to the Galway Festival as well. Ed, I want to get your thoughts on that. What were your reactions to it?
Yeah, again, this is like a one-day meeting crammed into about 11, isn't it? I think, being truthful, no, I'm tongue-in-cheek there, really. Look, there were a couple of highlights. The main one, though, was the performance of Saudier in the Galway hurdle. Now, those of you with long, boring memories remember I actually put this up on this show back in February. I think it was an anti-postcard, the selection for the champion hurdle, and the horse ran okay without ever really setting the track alight. And then he's been everywhere. He's been up to 3 miles. He's been on the flat over 1.6 at Royal Ascot, and then they've got him here off top weight at a mark of 155. To be fair, this is a serious performance to defy that type of rating. They put the cheek pieces on for the first time. That appears to really sweetened him up. Patrick Mullins rode him a little bit more forward than perhaps he'd been running in previous contests, and wow. So I get a feeling, though, he's one of those horses who's going to be a grade 1.5 horse, as I kind of called him. I mean, he's rated 162 now, which basically puts him banging on the fringe of champion hurdle class once again. He's a very hard horse to place. Willie Mullins has gone on record to saying, you know, he's so fragile. Just keeping him sound is half the battle. And you can see that kind of from his CV. He rarely kind of backs up winning sequences. He kind of goes missing, then wins, then bombs out. And so I think he's a little bit of a law unto himself, shall we say. But clearly a horse with a lot of ability. I imagine they'll almost by default now have to kind of aim next season around the champion hurdle again. I mean, he's only 7. It's amazing, really. He seems to have been around for absolute ages. And does have some class back form. I keep saying he's a Grade 1 winner in Ireland who beat Shergar not all that long ago. And, of course, that horse has finished runner-up in a couple of champion hurdles. So it's in the locker somewhere. It's just harnessing it. So, yeah, definitely, though, Saudier will be going back up into the Grade 1 company in the autumn on the back of that.
Definitely one to keep an eye on. Now, Stephen, I wanted to highlight as well for you the story around the Melbourne Cup. Obviously, I think they're very kind of worried about the COVID restrictions. Half of the entries being reduced. Obviously, yeah, if Shane was on the show, he'd have a lot more to say, I imagine. But what's your initial reaction?
Well, yeah, I mean, Shane's the expert on Australian racing, but I think that the feeling is that this is sort of being used as an excuse to make it a lot harder for international horses to come. I mean, the thing you said about COVID, Joe, it could well be the case there might not be a Melbourne Cup the way Australia's going. It's all going a bit Handmaid's Tale over there. I mean, usually I'd be winding Shane up for 10 minutes about this, but they've basically shut down again in some of the big cities there because they've had 2 or 3 cases of COVID, and that they very severe zero COVID policy. I mean, it wouldn't be 10 on to go ahead the Melbourne Cup this year, but I do think there's a lot of things at play here, and as you said, Shane would know more about it than I would, but a lot of it is to do with horse welfare. There's a growing lobby in Australia, very anxious about the way horses are treated, our careers. and accidents on the track that have happened during the Melbourne Cup meet. It's getting a bit close to the bone and a bit dangerous. So that they're trying to use the stabling numbers as an excuse. They're making it a lot more expensive. Obviously, there's going to be quarantining involved. I think I saw there were 15 entries, and that was a huge fall from previous years. I mean, we used to have loads of horses go from Ireland. Some of the big stables used to target the race in the UK as well. So it's a shame. I mean, it all might be irrelevant because it might not happen at all. I wouldn't be the way things are going. I wouldn't be as surprised if it was called off as it is.
Well, moving on to something that we know is definitely happening, and that's this weekend's Shergar Cup. Guys, have you got any kind of thoughts on how you think that's going to go, and also where the value is for punters on this kind of event? Start with you, Stephen.
Yeah, well, I mean, it divides opinion, Joe. It's a bit Marmite, this. I mean, I do spend too much time getting aerated about bad ideas in racing. There just seems to be quite a lot of them come along at the moment. This is another one. I mean, it's the worst weekend's racing of the lot. I mean, there's 6-10 race handicap. The races are fine. They're worth 40 grand. They're quite competitive. It's 4-1 the field almost every race. Very trappy, bookmaker friendly. But the idea of trying to have 4 teams, I mean, it's not a concept that anybody is interested in any way. If you're a punter, you're backing the horse you fancy. You've done the form. You've been to the paddock. You've got the price you wanted. It's got nothing to do with 3 or 4 others riding in the same team. I mean, the one thing that did used to be quite interesting, Joe, is we used to see jockeys from all around the world riding, and some of the skills in the past used to be quite varied, to put it politely. But unfortunately this year, again, I think it's a COVID thing that it's slightly restricted in who can come and ride, which is a bit of a shame. But it's a really difficult card. I think there's a horse of Heather Maines who I like, I think called Island Brave. I'm just checking the declarations and speak. I've been watching this one. Yeah, it runs in the 125 at Ascot. It's not been running that well this season, but it's slipped down the weights, and she's a very, very good trainer who does really well with a small team of horses. And I think Island Brave could go well, but small stakes. And to be honest, Joe, if the cricket hasn't been washed out, it looks like an afternoon to go and watch the cricket down the road.
And any thoughts for you, Ed, on the Shergar Cup, just in general?
Absolutely no idea. To be honest with you, no. Not something I traditionally just get all that excited about. I'll just be honest with you. Yeah, I mean, there are people who enjoy it, and yeah, good luck to them. But as I said, these kind of pseudo team events and people trying to feign loyalty to certain teams, it's just not for me. As I said, it's almost an irrelevancy. It's a team event. If there's a horse on there, I think come down to a good mark and it's got his ground or her ground and looks a decent price, then yeah, I may get involved. But generally, a very quiet one, Ascot for me this Saturday.
All right, well, let's move on to some of the big upcoming races that we do have an interest in this week. So starting off on Saturday at Newmarket, the Sweet Solera Stakes, 7 furlongs on the flat course. Now, Stephen, I just want to run through the card with you on this one. Anyone that kind of stands out? Obviously, we've got the heading of the market with Wild Beauty and, of course, Value Theory as well. Anything that stands out for you in this one?
Well, I really do like Wild Beauty here. I think that run last time at Sandown, when finished second behind Inspiral, is a lot better than it looks. It was one of those races, Joe. There wasn't really a second, to be truthful. The winner was so impressive. But I think that Inspiral is a top-class prospect, and Wild Beauty wasn't really seen to maximum effect. I think, to start with, that this sort of track, more conventional track, will suit. I don't think Buick gave a brilliant ride, to be truthful. She was pushed along quite a long way out there and got tapped in a poor position behind horses. And when she finally got out, she took second right on the post, Inspiring a quick and clear. I mean, I think Inspiring is a Group 1 filly, a real top-class prospect, probably the best filly we've seen in that division so far. And Wild Beauty lost no case in defeat. You know she'll stay. I'm hoping she'll get a much more positive ride here. I think she's got the best form, and I think she'll be very hard to beat.
And what's your predictions for this one, Ed?
Yeah, I echo a lot what Stephen says there. You've got Wild Beauty and Sunstriker kind of tied in from that Sandown runner. Just what a bigger price I did think was interesting. Majestic Glory for the Andrew Balding team. They're on absolute fire this season, especially in the last month. And David Probert's another jockey who's been riding out of his skin. And this filly won at this track last time out over the 6 furlongs. Now, if you saw it in Newbury on a penultimate start, she was far too keen and they tried to settle her. And she just didn't get home really over 6, albeit finishing runner-up. Last time out, they switched tactics up a little bit, let her just stride on. And that kind of worked really. And so I actually think there's plenty of reasons why she will get 7 furlongs now, because she saw out that trip well enough. So I think the change of tactics and just letting her stride on is allowing her to settle. As I said, the yard are absolutely flying. There's plenty of kind of 1 mile to 10 furlong kind of stamina and a pedigree, if you think. So it does align that the step up to 7 from 6 should suit. And now they've perhaps changed these tactics that do allow her to settle. She's got even more chance of seeing out the trip. So at double figure price, she was a tentative each way pick. But those that got the form in the book, you're right. You're kind of concentrating on the top 3 of the market and kind of which one of those really kind of floats your boat.
Nice one. And we'll move on to the other big race on Saturday as well, the Rose of Lancaster Stakes at Haydock, of course. Now, we do have Real World as the 6-4 favourite, Eushin Glen as well, the second favourite. But Stephen, just kick us off with your assessment of this race.
Well, my starting point here is Haydock. At the moment, Joe, it's good ground. Well, Haydock, if they get weather, it goes from good to soft to heavy very, very quickly. It's a track that's religiously overwatered and usually softer than the official on most occasions throughout the summer. So if they get the forecast rain, things could look very different. I mean, Real World was a horse we all absolutely loved when he won last time out. He showed an incredible turn of foot almost twice to get up and lead late, having gifted the runner-up a clear lead. It was a devastating performance. But Real World is now 6-4 at the moment. All of his form is on good or faster. If it got soft, that would be a good concern. The horse I don't fancy giving away the weight on these terms, Eushin Glen. Well, he does want rain. He's a very reliable old battler. He's been running brilliantly all summer, but you do think he has got a vulnerable look giving away the weight to younger horses. And the one down the bottom is the one I like, Fox's Tails. Andrew Balding absolutely flying. I think he's something like 23% in the last fortnight. He's had 15 winners or so. He's having a winner every day. Fox's Tails, soft ground winner at Ascot. So if the rain arrives, that's a huge plus. He's 6-1 now. I think the move, Joe, is to back Fox's Tails each way now. You'll get 3 places. First of all, the race could cut up if the ground does change. I wouldn't be at all surprised they pulled horses out on the day. But secondly, Fox's Tails will have ideal conditions. De Souza's book, the yard's flying. I thought the run last time out in a handicap was really good, travelling well. Sometimes horses go from being labelled as handicappers into group company, and people think, well, they've got a lot to do. They're stepping up in class. But I don't tend to think there's that much difference between the sort of handicaps and listed races, and certainly with Group 3, Group 2. But this Group 3 in particular, I think Fox's Tails will go really close. 6-1 is a very fair price.
So obviously a big thing there is to look out for the ground on the day. So maybe we hand over to our resident weatherman, Ed. What do you make of Stephen's assessment, and do you see things differently?
Yeah, it's spot on, because I think the ground is a huge part here, because I think on fast ground, I think Connections have said Real World must have top of the ground. On fast ground, I think Real World's at least a Group 2 horse. I mean, the way this horse won the Royal Hunt Cup, one of the easiest, I mean, it was eased down for crying out loud and was supposed to be one of the trickiest handicaps of the year. Bolted up at the Royal Hunt Cup, stepped back up to 10 furlongs last time out. Again, showed really good battling qualities and settled better over 10 furlongs and showed good turn of foot. I think this is at least a Group 2 animal. The big concern would be if the rains arrive. To be honest with you, if the ground does go soft, I think they'll just pull Real World out. They won't absolutely go and bottom the horse in deep ground. So got to sit on the fence with this race purely because of the ground. If the rains do arrive, then he likes a Fox's Tails, and I do think, although a bit more exposed, Eushin Glen do come into the equation. But if the rains do miss and it was good ground at worst, I do think Real World is a genuine, will be a Group 2 performer. I mean, this is a rapidly progressive sort who's rated in the 90s only a couple of months ago. Is now it's 116. If it bolted up here, would be right on the kind of the heels of, I see Baid's got up to 121. Well, at the moment, if Real World won this, wouldn't be far behind, you see what I'm saying? So a rapidly progressive sort, but the salient point here, Joe, is Real World must have fast ground. I mean, it was absolutely rattling the last couple of times when the horse won, and he's a horse with serious gears, and soft ground would diminish all his best assets.
Lovely. Now let's move on to the biggest race probably of the weekend. So the Keeneland Phoenix Stakes at the Curragh on Sunday, the 4:10. Now the betting here is led by Go Bears Go, as far as I can see, and also Castle Star. Stephen, have you got any kind of angle into this race?
Well, we don't know the final runners yet, Joe. It looks a real hot race, probably one of the best juvenile races, certainly in Ireland this season. I've really liked Ger Lyons' Beauty Inspire, 2 from 2, both at the Curragh. That's a big plus. The only thing troubling me, again, weather-related, both the wins have come on good ground. been very well backed each time. And I think there's loads more improvement to come. But obviously, it looks like Ireland are going to get the same weather we're going to get here over the next 3 days. So we're looking at this race thinking it's going to be good ground, a real top class. This could end up being 4 or 5 runners as well if it turns soft or heavy. But Beauty Inspire was my selection. But I think for punting point of view, we should wait to see what the ground is on the day.
And same for you, Ed, I guess?
It's at a point I actually think Gerline's ever running here. I just think it's the best horse in the race. Go Bears go, and won't mind if the rains arrive. I went on very deep ground on debut. The ground was actually, I think, just too quick over the minimum trip at Royal Ascot. Got going far too late and was arguably a little bit unlucky. Stepped up to 6 last time out here. Looked really smart. I think Go Bears Go is the one they've all got to beat. As Steve says, if the rains do arrive, there's a lot of rain forecast at the Curragh. When I last looked, there was at least 10 millimetres forecast throughout Thursday into Friday. And then we've got to get to Sunday for this race, if you see what I'm saying. So, yeah, ground conditions officially good to firm at the moment. Could look totally different by Sunday afternoon. So that wouldn't concern me, though, with Go Bears Go. I think it's the best horse and has winning form over course and distance and on soft ground. So, yeah, Ger Lyons does, though, look to have a very strong hand. And the kind of vibes it sounds like both horses are going to take their chance.
So that's it. Yeah, very much wait and see for those big races. But that covers the kind of highlight races for this weekend. But let's get into our tips of the week. So just to open things up, I want to start with looking back at last week. So Stephen, once again, you're doing pretty well on the jump to it count. Last week was pretty break even by the looks of things. But just give us your assessment of how things did last week.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I lost Hiram Beaton record, which I was disappointed by, but I wouldn't give up on that one. I think needs a stiffer test of stamina. Just got tapped the wrong time. One was really impressive. The other one was a runner. On to this show, the two I like, we've already touched upon them both. They're both wouldn't mind rain. I've gone for Wild Beauty in the 250 at Newmarket. I think that one's form with Inspired is rock solid. 5-2 is a very fair price. I think the key here will be a much more positive ride with stamina proven for this trip. And at Haydock in the 410 in the Rose of Lancaster, I really do think that Fox's Tail's overpriced at 6-1 at the moment. That race could look completely different by Saturday if the weather forecast is right. And we know that Fox's Tail sluices through soft ground, and that's not something you can say about the current short price favourite. So 2 good bets, hopefully, for this weekend.
Well, great track record so far for yourself. And Ed, let's bring up your results from last week. So, yeah, creeping into
giving it all back.
Profit. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he started off so well, but now going backwards a little bit. But just talk us through those selections and how they went.
Yeah, I was just saying, Newey St. George just wasn't good enough for the day. Bill Pato was the strange one, given that the horse was, I think, backed into 9-2. Drifted on the machine at the 14s in the last 10 minutes and was pretty much pulled up in a 10 furlong flat race. So I don't know what happened there for the David Simcock runner. So the wheels literally came off. But on to this week, that we'll get stuck back in again. And yeah, I'm off to Haydock for the mares races, the Dick Hearn Stakes for fillies and mares listed contest here. That comes at 3:35. Potapova for Sir Michael Stout. Now, remember, this was a filly who won hands and heels at Redcar a couple of starts ago, won by half the track, and then they threw in the really deep end when she went to Royal Ascot in the Coronation Stakes. She didn't run too badly, but the benefit of hindsight, you look at Alcohol Free, Snow Lantern, Mother Earth, some very good horses. She finished on just in behind on that day. The ground was absolutely bottomless at Royal Ascot. That wouldn't have suited her at all. Now, again, we come to it and been a little bit of a hypocrite saying sitting on the fence with regard to the ground. It's currently good to firm at Haydock. I can't imagine it's going to go as deep anywhere near as it was at Ascot, even if it rains for a couple of days. But I just think she's a class act. She's taken a big drop down in grade here for Group 1 company into this race. Holly Doyle, interested jockey booking. I don't think she was given the best of rides potentially at Royal Ascot either. So Holly Doyle on, down in class. As long as it doesn't go heavy, I just think a bit of cutting the ground would be fine. She's an exciting type, and I think she can get back to winning ways to the Sir Michael Stout team. So that's that one out of the way. And then, we touched upon it earlier in Ireland. I think Go Bears Go. He's just the best horse in the race. Won really nicely last time out over course of distance when enjoying the step up to 6. Ran a cracker in defeat at Royal Ascot. Soft ground won't be an issue. been there, done it at the track, and it looks a proper Group 1 performance in my eyes. So go Bears, go as well. Nothing. I'm scratching around, Joe, looking with my long shot goggles on, looking for some kind of 16-1 good thing. But it just looks really tricky this weekend. Been saying it for a couple of weeks, but nothing really standing out from the kind of double figure price side of things. So a couple of shorties this week, and I've got to pull my finger out a bit and hope they get going, and we can get back up to the hit the +10 target in profit, which is my next aim.
Great stuff. All right, guys. Well, that wraps up for our top selections this week on Jump to It. Thanks a lot for joining us, guys. I'll be back in the saddle next week as well. Shane's still on holiday, but we can get him back very soon. So that wraps things up for this edition of Jump to It. Thanks a lot for watching. If you want more top tips from the horse racing world from our racing editor Stephen Harris, head on over to bettingexpert.com. Head on also over to Irish Racing for all the latest cards and news in the world of racing. But for now, thanks a lot for watching, and of course, if you do place a bet, please gamble responsibly.